Maybe just chuck it. Don't you?
He is trolling you, dude. You need to move him after you've done the microphone.
Move him lost.
Oh my god.
You just touch him and just hair.
Oh yeah, you get.
Do you?
This podcast is a production of Digital and Creative Media Works. To help support us, head to dcm.works to find links to our other show notes, Patreon, and merch. Hey guys, welcome back to the Outriders Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works. My name is David, DCM, Creative Director, Lead Writer, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Ben.
Hi.
And today's special guest Laura
Hello.
and Crookshanks, who just left
Who
the
just
frame.
left.
Thank God, because he shat on me like a mofo. It's late, so it's going to be low energy, but I'm bringing the intensity. I got the heat, I got the fire, I got the podcast juice.
How long are you going to keep
How
that
long
up,
is this
David?
gonna last? Yeah.
5 minutes tops, I estimate at this point.
Yeah.
We've got our notes written, we're hot to trot, we're ready to go, because this week we are going to talk about the noise of Blade Runner 2049.
That's a very
You
interesting
spelled
title, David.
noise wrong.
It says nosy.
It says nosy.
Now, as promised, last week we watched the original Blade Runner, and I said that we were going to do a follow-up, and we didn't lie to you.
This is the follow-up.
This is that one.
This is that one.
You haven't misread your podcast application.
We are doing another Blade Runner film.
It's Blade Runner 2.0.
This time the second one. 2.049.
2.049. That's nearly 3. That's nearly 2.5 Blade Runners. And basically what we kind of were thinking of
It's
doing.
nowhere near 2.5, but okay.
Oh my god, it's not. I know how math is. It's basically 2. Yeah, so one of the things that characterized the first Blade Runner film pretty heavily was like the way they use sound and noise. And we talked about that last week with like the nuance of how they implemented that stuff and kind of the revolutionary design of combining sound and visuals and music and like Foley to this one kind of conglomeration of like noisy, messy, cool stuff that happened. Like, and
Yeah,
you
they
can
weren't
go through and do that.
They weren't afraid of taking elements of the world and throwing it into the soundtrack just because
And then
it
vice
would,
versa.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah, and it feels like what you hear is what the characters might
Were
be hearing,
yeah.
but then sometimes not, because where's the music coming from? And then in other scenes, you're like, oh, this is just the soundtrack, but then there's actually music playing. And I think that comes from the claustrophobia of particularly the cities where there could be music playing at any time, because there's, big billboards.
Yeah, and there's
you know,
also just like noises of things because the
Right.
cities are so dense that it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's probably noises going on all hours of the
At some
night.
points, there was things that's like happening to the character as well. It's a really intense moment for him, like finding this. Spoilers, I guess.
Oh, as always,
It's
the name
in
of the
the-
thing is in the title of the
Yeah,
episode. Spoilers
spoilers.
for the thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when he's finding the little wooden horse thing, and it gets really noisy.
Oh
'cause
my
he's
God.
freaking out.
That's
Oh,
wild.
yeah.
That is one of the slowest, most beautiful shots I've seen in a long time.
It just
Like, the
keeps
build up to
going.
that.
You're
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
And it keeps getting louder too, which I was like, I didn't expect it to, but then as it kept getting louder, I was like, I got more and more stressed for him. You know what I mean?
I was so on board. I think the moment the film started and it's just loud, and I was like,
It
yes.
was hot to trot, man.
I was like,
And
absolutely.
The minute I saw Gozzo in that coat, I was like, yes, please. Sign me up. He was handsome in this film. But I will say this about like the costume design is especially, because we talked about it, we were joking about it on the way to the car.
Yeah.
But the clothes in this, it kind of has that vibe of like, you're kind of like Firefly Alien. We talked about it last week, but there's this element of, it seems like the clothes people wear in this world are like the only set of clothes they own. Because they own them specifically because they're great for the weather they live in.
I think that
You know?
the clothes in this, well, the costumes, I'm going to call them costumes because they're not really clothes. The costume in this film seem like so this film is set 30 years after the first film. So this first film was in 2019.
Yep.
And this is 2049. So, and the kind of clothing they're wearing, if you look at the clothing in the first Blade Runner, there's a lot of like 80s kind of like Ziggy Stardust.
There is a lot of that.
Spandex.
There's some David Bowie shit.
Yeah,
in
there's
there.
some Bowie shit going
Yeah.
on. And if you consider that being the 80s and you add the 30 years to what we essentially
Makes
have now,
sense.
you get 2049, which, all of the costumes are all a bit more modernized. People are wearing actual raincoats, not just see-through pieces of plastic. Although there is one in the film.
Yes.
The weird hologram does wear it once.
It is, and she kind of. It's a weird. I'll say
It's
this
just for,
about
like,
the
3
costume design
seconds, yeah.
of her.
Yeah.
There was this really interesting thing they did, and we'll pivot back to it when we get to talking about the parallels with the holograms and stuff. But one of the things that I thought was interesting. Don't you dare sit on that chair. I was talking to the cat, not to you, good listener.
I mean, don't sit on that chair. Stop.
Also, stop it. Stand up. It's better for your health if you stand up, apparently. Apparently, if you stand up 2 hours a day, you're likely to live some amount longer.
Yeah.
There's some figure. That was not a useful statistic for anyone.
Thanks, David.
That was just a vaguism that I thought was a
Yeah.
fact.
Oh,
He's getting on my chair.
but-
Son of a bitch.
hey! You're
That's,
gonna have a very hairy chair.
that's fine. I'll just burn everything in this room.
Yep.
This couch is covered in hair. I've done up my shirt to protect my black shirt that I'm wearing
It's
underneath.
not. It's
not helping.
It's gonna permeate through.
It's gonna seep through the layers.
Yeah.
But something that I wanted to touch on a bit with the holographic girlfriend stuff is it's obviously like they use it
First
as,
of all, weird.
yeah, I was gonna well that's
I
kind
wasn't.
of,
It took me a
was-
while to.
the
I was like,
effect they used was so
so
jarring.
super.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. But like even like with that, it was so interesting how they committed to it 100%. Where like
Yeah, it wasn't a
From the
gimmick. Yeah.
first like instant that he's like interacting with her, he's so careful not to collide with her.
you can tell it's very conscious, right? Because it breaks the illusion.
right.
Yeah.
And do you think that because obviously acting as the Gozzo is easy because she's a real person in the room who he just has to not touch.
No, I actually,
Oh, okay.
I have
You got
facts
reason
for
to
me?
believe that it was purposefully filmed separately and composited in green screen to get the effect. Do you know how, like, whenever you
Yeah.
have, like, the Garfield film, right? It always looked like they were interacting with just, like, a hologram, because that's what CG looked like. I base this on no actual fact.
But at the same
But-
time, they are clipping through each other a bit.
There-
There had to be
yeah,
something-
This is a
there
classic
were-
art for artists. Fact.
No, zero research. But there were scenes where, like, they were so weirdly composited, and
they were weirdly
it,
like going through each other.
Yeah, and it
Always.
looked
it
like-
was never perfect. It was always
yeah,
like-
which works.
purposefully like
Yeah.
not perfect.
That is, I hadn't really thought about that, but that is a very clever way of showing you that like this technology is this kind of as imperfect as the world it's in, right?
Yeah.
Like this is like your consumer brand hologram, which if that was the world we lived in, that's
Also,
what we would get.
How does a stick make the hologram be able to go anywhere?
It's like a flash drive, dog.
It's like
You don't know about USBs?
that can project arbitrary holograms at any angle without
It's
a tether
fucking
point.
magic. They made people, dude. Come on. They got flying cars and they build giant dams to keep out the rising sea levels. You don't think
I thought
they
that
can
was
do...
cool.
Oh, yeah, we'll
I
get to
thought
that
that
in a
was really
second.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
man.
rising sea
Oh,
levels.
It's so cool.
I don't know anything about this film. Okay?
No,
No, it's not even in the
this
first
is new
one.
in this film.
Yeah.
It's just like a lot of that stuff you contextually are like,
Oh.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Well,
you know.
I thought one of the really interesting things with this,
Why it's raining all the time because of climate
like,
change.
so like
Yeah.
the first shot of the film being like just a massive shot of an eye, and I'm like, what the hell does this have to
That's
do with anything?
so this
Um,
film, especially the open. Well, this film does really interesting things if you've seen the first one. So the opening.
Wait, I
the
want to hear the
text.
cold first. And then
Okay,
we'll get...
all right, we'll go cold.
Yeah, but like I was like, what's the so the thing is I was like, okay, so eyes are obviously sort of important in this universe for some
Yes.
They're important in the
reason.
universe, not important in this film. Weirdly enough,
And
Yeah.
then like
Yeah.
you sort of get into like the first sequence with
Okay. Wait, what's the first sequence?
it's where he's at the
when
farmers.
he
Yeah,
goes
so
to
Kay's
farmer
going
Yeah.
out and he's going to take
Retire the
take
farmer.
take
Sapper.
down Dave Batista.
Dave Batista. He's getting Drax.
He's
Yeah.
getting Drax.
Um,
Sapper is, I believe, that character's name.
Sure.
okay.
I wrote it down, so it must be true.
Yeah.
And like he does a thing where he scans the eye and then he takes the eye when he's done.
Yeah.
And then and they don't explain anything.
No.
But-
Were you able to?
But like
Connect
you
some
can
dots.
extrapolate like, okay, so they use the eyes to identify them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's sort of really important.
Yeah. And then they do a really cool thing, which I thought, I think where you were gonna go, and I don't want to
Yeah.
like put words in your mouth, which I'm gonna do it anyway.
You're gonna.
Because I have no respect for you as a human, apparently. But for the artistic integrity of the show, I'm gonna bull ahead, and then you can correct me. I thought it was cool that they kind of fixed the eye thing pretty quickly, where they were like, he's got a handheld scanner, and then he uses it once, and then he's good enough at his job. He knows who's a replicant.
Well,
You know.
so yeah, the opening text scroll sort of it does an interesting thing where it describes very briefly the setting of the first film, and then sort of reintroduces this new setting where you sort of slowly realize that instead of the first film where everyone is human
Yep.
except a few renegade replicants, in this film everyone's a replicant.
Everyone's a ton
except
of
for a
people are
few
replicants.
humans.
Yes.
Most people are there's what, one confirmed human in this film? The sergeant, the police sergeant. She's
no,
like the.
two, and also the lab assistant, the morgue,
Oh,
the
yeah,
guy at
he
the
was
mortuary.
human.
I thought he was also replicant. He's not confirmed human.
Well, he was
That's a
talking. No, he was talking down to
Yeah,
the
he did-
replicants.
he
He
did,
called them
like, call
skinners
them
or
out.
whatever he
Yeah.
called them.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also all the other all the humans were living in poverty in
Yeah.
Kay's
Yeah.
apartment building,
and they all
kind of.
hated him.
Yeah,
They were
which-
vaping.
They were vaping!
There it is.
We saw future vapes.
Yeah,
Oh,
future
man.
vapes.
Anytime there's
I told
future
you.
vapes in the films, I get jazzed as hell.
I pick
Because
up
vapes
on it.
ain't going away, baby. They're
Nah.
coming back in a big way.
They're sticking around.
Jake Pauley said vapes, they're coming back, and they have.
Oh my god.
Is it Logan or Jake that did that? Is Jake even one
I
of them?
don't think it matters. Yeah, Jake
Doesn't
does.
matter. It's the same meme.
So
Yes.
another, and this is actually we'll talk about this when Laura talks about the females in this film.
Okay, well then can I pivot from
you can
that
pivot.
initial scene to then something that I kind of thought was
do you want me to
clever?
explain the eyes? The eyes are important.
go
Yeah,
for
so
it.
the eyes are important in the first film, basically just because it's the only way to really detect a replicant. Is
'Cause-
to it's interesting. So the tests that they do to test for replicants in the first film are like really long-winded, and they require like direct eye contact and a really clunky machine that has to like look on their eye to notice like sort of subtle differences. And it's the same kind of test as the PTSD test that he takes in this film. So the one where he's just sitting in front of the thing and they're just giving him questions and he just has to respond. It's a similar kind of test, which I thought was really interesting because it's like 30 years on, the technology has improved to the point where, you know, the questioning is more streamlined.
It's instant. It's checking about hesitation, not about because I thought the really cool
they had
thing.
like a camera trained on his neck as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were checking for like emotional response. But the cool thing was the hesitation was what tipped them off to the fact that there was an issue with his program or his emotional dampeners, whatever the whatever they call that in the first film. The reason you know there's something wrong isn't because he's like, you know, in the first film there's that really elaborate thing of like you come across a turtle in a desert and then, you know. But in this one it's like
very dumb.
in this one it's emotionally triggering phrase, then repeat a word.
Yeah.
And if you hesitate on repeating the word, then
it means you're
measures that
lingering
stuff
on
and
the
because you're trying to decide. You got an emotional you know, when the phrase one of them was like, are you like you feel like you're alone in the world, or some version of that, and I like felt myself have like an emotional response to that. And then the next one was like you know, the feeling of being touched by someone you love, and I was like, oh, another emotional response. And then you get the idea very quickly because you're sitting in the same test ostensibly, because the first scene you get is the full length of it. So I was like, oh, I understand how this works because I'm going through it as well, which is a clever way of like showing, not telling, without it's like doing, not showing. It's weird.
It's like letting the audience take part,
which is something that
via proxy.
which you know the first film did fantastically, and this one does you know an excellent job as well. You know, we talked about the dam that, you know, they built to keep out the rising, you know, sea levels. No one says that in the film.
Yeah.
We just worked it out because we were like, okay, well, you know, it's the future. There's a big giant wall. There's water everywhere. It's raining all the time. You can kind of there's a trust these films have, and that's why I wanted to talk about the noise of it.
There's trust. There's a few points where beer is being opened. There's like the one point where I just wanted them to shut up and go to the next scene was when
What was that?
they were discussing where she's like, "Oh, take me with you in your little pixie stick," and he's like, "No, it's too dangerous." And I'm like, okay, I know why. Shut up. And he's like, because if you go in here and I delete
I
you
was
there
also
and then
like-
it gets destroyed, then you'll be lost forever. I was like, shut up, Ryan Gosling. We know.
No,
like,
but you know why that's in there, and I guarantee this 1,010% that's in there because during
test
focus
audiences,
testing,
some
in the-
people
in the-
didn't
in the-
realize.
No, in the scene when she steps on the thing,
So like, why is she
people were like,
disappear?
why is he sad?
Yeah.
And it's like, you fucking numpties. You ruined a good film. I bet you the director's cut doesn't have that.
Oh, absolutely.
I
I guarantee
bet you it's
the
gone.
director's cut does not have it. Yeah.
Because that scene would have been really good if he's like, no way, and then later on she pops out and you're like, oh, he took it, it's okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Instead of being like, no,
Right,
honey,
even
I
just
don't
like
do
even
it.
just like lingering shots on him, even if they just silently decide and he just like, he just does the transfer. Like even they went so far to explain, if the thing gets destroyed, then I'm gone forever. But they didn't like explain the fact that there's a tracking beacon in it. It's like, what? Where?
Because the tracking thing, but then I guess that doesn't matter because there was already one in his coat. But I guess the thing that, like, one of the major plot points of this film, and I don't want to like rag on it because I had a delightful time. But one of the weird plot points is that they find Kay because of the tracker in his coat.
But the tracker is implied to be... That's meant to be like a twist.
But how do they find him? Because it's like they find him through the police database somehow.
No, it's so he's got... So the tracker in his coat is supposed to be like the thing that they use to find him or whatever. But because he's a replicant, he just has a tracker built in.
Okay.
Right? That was the implication because he's a cop.
But
so he's got that in
the
him.
payoff for that was that the tracker was there so that the rebel people could find him.
Yeah, the tracker wasn't actually for the other people to find him.
Yeah.
Which
initially I was like, the
cool.
tracker is for the cops to find him.
But the cops,
but the fox kind of anyway.
Yeah, so that's a cool little
Yeah.
a cool little twist that I didn't pick up on until you've just explained it to me. So that's actually really cool. But to me,
I mean, it is explained because the person who goes up and tells the prostitutes, whatever they're called, in that 2014,
the ladies of the night.
The ladies of the night. I don't know what the proper term is.
Ladies of the night. Yeah.
The person who goes up to them and tells them like, a guy in the green suit is like the rebel leader who has no introduction beyond that scene, and like at first I thought was just the evil lady girl, but it's not. It's the rebel leader. I was like, what? It's odd. Yeah, it's very weird.
You know what I thought was kind of interesting and different and weird that was just like I didn't love it, but I thought like it was a brave decision. Is that they were like they did this thing throughout where in a normal film when something action-y is about to happen, they'll ramp up the sound so something's about to kick off, right?
Yeah.
And we touched on this before with that scene where he goes and he pulls the horse out. But in this film, they did this weird thing where they would play alarms as part of the soundtrack to cue you that there was a change in like a character's decision making. This happened like 2 or 3 times where the alarms would sound and then Gozo would just like as he was resolving to change his mind about something. The best one is when he sort of the hologram the hologram Joy, the giant Joy, is leaning down and talking to him, and he's like suddenly realizing that his entire fucking life is a lie, even though it doesn't matter if he's a replicant. Everything that he cared about is just like fucking bullshit. And he's like, I just have to do something. I have to go and make a difference.
I have to take this bandage off.
I have to take it off my nose because I look dumb with bandages.
Yeah.
And when it's raining later, they would slide off anyway, so get rid of him now. It's good costume design. And he makes that decision, and as he's doing it, he gets angrier and angrier, and the sound kind of ramps up, and then you get the alarms kick in really quietly, and they kind of build up, and then you cut across to the alarms of the police, of the they're not real. They're a mirror and an echo of the earlier police sirens when he was being chased, but it's because he's chasing them. It's the weirdest like mirroring sound thing ever. And I was just like,
you mean the alarms as in like the blah?
Yeah, because they had those sirens.
They had those
playing
throughout the entire film. Yeah,
yeah, but particularly that sound is the same as the police.
The sound was generally used during like a scene where a police car was flying through.
Yes, or
by the way, those scenes were fucking incredible. They were very very Prometheus.
Yeah,
like
but not
Prometheus.
Yeah, in a what's Ridley Scott helped.
It's a Ridley Scott production, but not directed by Ridley Scott, so it's good.
Can we talk about the best transition in this film and maybe in cinema, except for the 500 Days of Summer reality expectation scene?
Do you want to point it out?
When he's there. Gozo's been knocked out, and the rebels are taking him back, and he kind of comes into focus, and he looks at the fire, and then you follow into the fire, and the embers go up, and then the embers become the lights of the city, and then you go down and you're in it. I was like, what the fuck? How did they do that? It was the coolest shot.
That whole section of that whole like scene of like him being picked up by the rebels, and then him like sort of waking up in like the campfire, and then like that sort of initial sort of arc of him being like picked up by the rebel people is so like like stalker-ish, as in like the game slash
video game,
books,
yes.
or slash movie, I guess. Like it's so there's such a weird sort of like Soviet element to it. Partly because there are a lot of
Yeah.
weird Soviet references in the film.
What's that? It feels like those Metro games where it's like the end of
Yeah,
the world.
yeah,
and there's
yeah.
like people
That-
in
yeah.
hazmat suits.
Yeah, that
and-
kind of thing where it's just
Yeah.
like it's such a like there's such a dichotomy between like the super high like neo-futurism
Yeah.
city and then like these sort of rebels that huddle around fires, and like it's very much a it's,
Also, they're burning wood, which well, we don't know
it
what
wasn't
they're burning,
would.
but it wasn't wood. Like
It definitely wasn't wood.
kind of would, 'cause
Wood
wood
is
is-
described
Yeah,
as
but
being
it's-
extremely
Yeah.
rare.
But I thought that was like a cool, like you when you think about like the primal forces of the natural world, it's like fire. It's like
It's fire.
Earth,
It's mostly fire.
but it's like fire and water. They're like the two things you can't control
Yeah.
ostensibly.
Wind.
Sorry,
Wind.
Well, yeah, but wind's also
The
less
moving
exciting.
of the earth.
The rocks, volcanoes. We just
The
listing stuff you
rocks.
can't change.
Yeah.
The weather, unless
Yep.
what's that new film Geostorm? Is to be
Yeah, some shit film about changing the weather. Yeah, fuck, it looks
Yeah,
horrible.
whatever.
I guess the point that I wanted to bring up about the revolution specifically is they did this thing where they were like, they pivoted into it without being like a cliche. They were like, you don't know if these guys are good or bad. And then you kind of see the prostitute lady hovering above him, and you're like, is he dreaming? What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And they go back and like, these are probably good guys. And then they do this clever thing, which I fucking hate. So in the Hunger Games, not to do a drive-by, but in the book, which is really not good.
Drive-by.
Drive-by time. It's a classic David drive-by. I do one of these every fucking episode.
Yeah, pretty much.
somehow.
You just slam something else as we go past.
I just slander something people love to
Yeah.
death. In that book, when Katniss is working with the rebels, it's a very cliche like relationship. Where she's like, I don't want to be a rebel, and they're like, but you have to. You're the one, and she's like, but I don't want her, and they're like, but you have to, and then she goes, someone I loved got hurt because I wasn't with them. Time to go with them, like kind of thing. Whereas
Yeah.
with this, they were like,
They're like-
here are the rebels, and they're telling you to kill the guy that you don't want to kill.
Yeah. And
then
also
that
you're
was it.
no, and also you're not the one.
You're not the chosen one. You're not Frodo. You are
You're
fucking
just-
Pippin.
You're just a dude.
You're just a guy.
Yep.
You're not even Pippin. You're not even Pippin. You're fucking.
You're
you-
just a random.
You're
dude.
Sean Bean.
Oh my god.
Sean-
You're fucking Sean goddamn Bean.
Bourne.
You're expendable and you are unattractive.
You're a scene bean.
And you've got weird, floppy, greasy hair.
I did. Yeah, I
Oh,
like
no.
the overall sort of, I guess, twist
Uh,
of the story
of
of her
the-
being the daughter.
you know what? I thought it
Because
was.
she was a cool character, and I was just like, oh, we're never gonna see her again. And then towards the end, I was just like, actually,
I thought it was nice without being. What I would have liked, and this is just the storyteller in me, is not to see them interact at all. Just to follow Gozzo on the steps down.
I mean,
would have
I
preferred
think
that.
I think just for the smirk at the end, it was worth it. Like that Harrison Ford smirk
Yeah.
at the
I
very end, that makes that makes it
when he
okay.
puts the hand up.
No, the hand is whatever. It's the smirk because that he's like literally throughout the entire film. There's moments where he's like it comes and it's he's like suppressing it.
Yeah. Can we
And
talk
yet-
about how good he acted the shit out of this film? Harrison
He's
Ford
so good in this
turned
film.
the fuck up for once.
This
He's
this
he's
is a
phoned
better
it in for 20 years.
performance. This is a better performance than his episode 7.
Anything
By
he's
far.
done ever except Raiders. But like he turned up and like
Yeah.
every scene he was in, when Jared Leto when what's his name Neander, when Wallace is interrogating him or whatever. Also, by the way, great man in the room scene. I haven't talked about we talked about this trope before on the show, but the man in the room scene is ostensibly where at the end of a story you have one of your protagonists in a room with the villain, and
the villain
they discuss their philosophy,
Yeah.
and the villain explains their worldview. And a really good writer will
Good one in Spider-Man as well.
really good one in Spider-Man. Yeah, amazing one
Yeah.
in Spider-Man. And the whole point of it is that what you want to do is make the villain's motive sympathetic, because as an audience member, you only believe villains if you think the villain believes they're doing the right thing. And this
Yeah.
was a great version of that. But what I fucking loved is that they had Harrison Ford sit there and emote the shit out of the scene without
Yeah.
being like quipping or like
Yeah.
being
They
saying
let
a
him,
sad thing.
They let him act.
They let him act because he's really good when you just let him do it instead of being like, now say the thing about the Force. Like, it was just him being like, I am this character who doesn't say much but feels a lot.
Yeah. That
I loved it so
that
much.
scene I thought was really funny because if you take what Wallace was saying when he was discussing how it's just like maybe you were designed to fall in love, implying that he's a replicant.
Yep.
Maybe you're designed to fall in love.
Yep.
If you subscribe to that theory that he was designed to fall in love, it actually retcons the worst scene from the original film and makes it less bad because it takes it from Deckard as it takes it
pest.
yeah, it takes it from he was a sex pest to he was actually programmed to by design to quote unquote fall in love with her, and when she started to leave, his programming kicks in and he's
Stop
just like start the rape thing.
Do the rape thing. This might be
Which,
good.
look, I every time I come back to that scene, I hate it so much
It gets
because
worse
they
every
really
time.
they surrounded it with the wrong thing. Again, if they just
Yeah.
sort of tweaked it here and there,
You had
it
one
could-
sentence
yeah.
last week to perfectly summarize it, where you were like, all they had to do was change the order of the music.
Yeah,
You play
but-
the romantic music to start with,
and then
play
you
the
get
creepy
sudden.
music.
But there's
it goes
still
creepy and then
there's
romantic.
still stuff around it which is bad. But
Yeah.
if you're able to just like it does a weird thing where like they obviously knew that scene was a problem, and this
Yes.
is like them trying to be like, look, we're gonna
They
contextualize
constructed
it.
the narrative around the fact that these two were in love and they had a kid together. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, you felt
And then he comes and says that like
That's
you
weird.
you two weren't in love by like you weren't in love because you fell in love. You were in love because you were designed to be in love.
Yes, which
Because
clever, but the cool thing, and this is just good philosophy, is it doesn't matter if they were or weren't, because the minute
No.
you plant that seed of doubt,
Yeah.
you're fucked.
yeah, there's
Like,
no confirmation. Like it doesn't confirm that he's a replicant.
It's all it's
this movie plays
Because he's just
so
like
well
Yeah.
maybe you
like-
weren't maybe you didn't fall in love due to your own volition.
Oh,
Maybe you fell in
it's-
love due to
it's
design,
ambiguity bias.
and you just see Deckard just
Oh.
like
This movie
twitch.
plays so well with like the line between human and not human. Oh, it's so good. I love it.
Well,
And-
it
yeah.
plays the opposite of the first film because in the first one,
Yes.
yeah, like everyone was human, so being a replicant was a problem. But in this one, it's like everyone is a replicant, and
So-
it comes down to
So I was saying this before, but this film is exactly what Ghost in the Shell should have been.
oh, absolutely.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I'll say this: my dot point is gone. I don't know where it went. It's that one that's got deleted. But
Right.
what I wanted to say is that Kay is an obvious foil for Harrison Ford's character in the first film. That's still there.
still there.
I don't know why I'm explaining to you, the audience, that we have dot points. It feels like I need to adjust it. We do work.
What do you mean by foil, David?
So a foil is a character that is ostensibly the opposite but has the same arc. So
Okay.
a good example is a foil for Aang in the Last Airbender cartoon series is Zuko, because they both
Yeah.
have the same maturation plot, but they have different experiences with how it happens.
Okay, so this one
So-
is in the original film, Deckard believes he's human, but he's fighting with the fact that he thinks his memories might be fake, and he's actually a replicant. Whereas Kay is
a replicant.
a replicant. Well, he thinks he's a replicant, but
Yeah.
he has to tackle with the fact that maybe his memories are
human.
real, and he's
Or
actually
he may be
or-
more human.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
more than just a replicant.
And then
Yeah.
even so, this film does a lot of mirroring, which is a really nice, obviously like literal mirroring. So you've got like characters who are real, and then ones that are replicants, characters that are holograms, and then in one of the weirdest, best executed, weirdly directed, so super cool, unsettling in the right way scenes is the lovemaking scene.
So I was like,
It
I'm
is-
sitting there, I was just like, is he just gonna bone her and she's gonna watch, and then they start going together?
Yeah.
It's just like this just got
Well,
weird.
she puts, the weirdest thing is she puts the receiver in her mouth so that they can sync up better, and it was the right amount of weird that you would be
Yeah.
like, if you weren't Gozzo, who'd lived with this
Who lives
person for
with-
2
yeah.
years or however long, you this is strange.
And it's
then
implied that
the slight out of syncness, I was like, any other film would have
Yeah.
been like, and they're perfectly in sync and he makes love to his wife, but this one they were like, no, it's weird.
Yeah, it's
She's got the
slightly out
wrong
of sync,
colored hair
yeah.
sometimes, and he touches her.
Well,
there's lag.
especially when they merge together, like it's not like she doesn't just like turn into the hologram girl. It's a weird half.
It's so
Yeah,
weird.
It's a weird
never,
double image,
like-
and it shifts back and forth. So you're like, who is he actually
Yeah.
boning right
World's
now?
weirdest threesome.
Is it? It's implied that the hologram ordered the like.
Yeah.
the hooker?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, however, what I think may have happened, and this is like put on my tinfoil hat. What I think could be an element of it is that she knew that he liked that girl, right? Somehow, who told her that?
When she's talking, when they're talking for the first time, his beeperino goes off. So it was on him and active when they were talking.
Oh,
So maybe she just knew because he had it. That's why she's like, "Oh, you
Yeah,
don't like real girls."
that makes a ton of sense.
So the
Okay.
beep could have been like, "Hey,
they
stop."
put that in really cleverly. That like sound bite.
The
Oh
start
yeah,
of that-
the
start of the
what is
concerto.
it's yeah the concerto yeah.
Yeah. Very, you know what? I'll say this. Fucking, they had the giant Atari logo again. And I was like, yes!
I love it.
Also,
I love
there
the
was
giant
so
Atari
much
logo.
product placement. There
I've-
was
I've-
like 2 like Sony billboards. There was
There's a
like
couple of
Peugeot,
Cokes, there was a Peugeot.
you haven't seen the first film, have
The
you?
first film's even
So
worse.
let me tell you something about Blade Runner and the brands they include. Everything they included in the first film except Coca-Cola has folded. So there is this theoretical curse that if your company is
Well, I mean,
included in the Blade
Atari
Runner,
isn't doing very well.
So Sony and Peugeot.
Sony's on the way out.
well, they did do they
Peugeot, you
they
never
they,
know.
yeah,
His car was a Peugeot. Did
His
you
car
notice
was a Peugeot.
that?
I
yeah.
did,
All the
but
cars
they
were
waited
Peugeots.
for a long time to slip that in.
Yeah.
And when
They
they
did,
did it,
yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's cute."
I was like, cool.
I didn't go
whatever.
like, egregious. I was like, oh, that's
It's not like it was going to be any other car brand. It's not like they had like Ford or shit.
I'm
Or,
like
anything.
Ferrari.
Yeah,
Like,
Ferrari.
there
Porsche would've
was
been cool.
okay. Can we talk about like how weird the kind of junkyard Star Wars junk planet section of the world was, and how much I fucking like that.
I hated that
You know,
scene,
you know when
yeah.
people talk about like things that they egregiously love because it like activates the child in their brain.
What?
Like that
do
whole
you, Do
sequence.
you just love child labor?
No, but like the whole aesthetic of that
The
area.
orbital striking, or
No,
I mean, that scene was nice. It had some good gunslinging.
no, I was thinking of like the gunslinging, the whole kind of like vibe of it. I was like, this is very Mad Max meets like
Yeah.
Dark Tower. Like it just it ticked.
It's just reminded me of
Ticked all the
'cause
boxes.
She's getting like her hollow nails done there. That was super cool.
That was cool, actually. That might be a good pivot to talk about the women, because I was going to talk about more
Yeah.
of how much I fucking love that scene with the, because it's like Dark Tower meets Mad Max, and it just like it's all the things in my childhood brain that are like, this make David happy boy. But yeah, so you want to talk about the women in this film. We talked about them a bit. Is there anything specifically that you wanted? Because one of the things I noticed is that
Yeah.
they do this thing where they make the women in this film, particularly you mentioned this, particularly subversive. I'll let you talk about it in a second.
Subversive.
Subservient. Jesus Christ, it's late. But that
Subversive.
kind of mirrored
Very
on a larger
divisive.
scale the perceived replicant struggle versus like humans
Right.
and stuff.
I mean, I also found it like interesting, like that city that they went to. There's all these like statues of like naked women.
There's
and
a lot of
just
that.
massive like healed feet and stuff.
was
Yeah.
that Vegas? I couldn't work it out.
It had to be.
I was looking
It's-
for landmarks that I
given
recognized.
that it was in
I
Los
was thinking,
Angeles and
like,
like
I was-
they went in, it had to be Nevada.
I mean, you'd think
It's
so.
a desert.
It's a desert.
It's a desert.
I recognize at least 2 things from Fallout New Vegas.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like,
I mean it's a
probably-
desert. They had a Elvis hologram.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
And
you know,
then,
it had to be Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah, it had to be
Sorry, I
Vegas.
cut you off. I got excited about Vegas. You were talking about
Yeah.
how
I mean, in that
There was lots
even
of
just
naked
like
women.
the giant naked woman holograms everywhere.
Mm.
Like
that
there was-
vagina was bigger than he was. When you think about it, like that's a big old cooch.
yeah. So it's like there's this
Like-
weird thing where like
At first I was like, what vagina?
it
one
it feels
that-
it
No
feels like the
visible
world is very
vaginas.
much filled with men. And like
Yeah,
the notable exception being the police sergeant,
Yes.
being like this badass female character, but there's like all these other like men surrounding, like there's barely any female characters, and it makes you like wonder where they all are. Like there's the prostitutes.
There's more main female characters than there are male characters.
Yes, but they're also
But-
all weirdly like
Yeah, it's more about the fact that
Yeah.
the world feels like it's driven by men.
right because
You know.
the main evil lady.
Yeah. Oh no, it is
she
equal because
is-
the main evil dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
She is like
It is
a
3-3.
servant to to Jared Leto.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like there is something to be said for the first film was made in 1982.
82.
Sounds right. We had that. Every time I said that last week, I said it with a question mark, and I can't remember. And I edited that episode 3 times. But and so I think what they did in a kind of an interesting way is they went, if we took the projection from that film and then took it further forward even more, like those kind of masculine ideologies carry forward and they kind of evolve into their own kind of weird version of like, if you took a future that someone imagined in 1982 and made it like forward this far,
Yeah.
how weird is it gonna get? You know,
It's also
pretty
not
weird.
as bad as the first film.
Really?
way better. Than
It's a lot better than the
and,
first.
I haven't seen the first
well,
film,
I,
by
I,
the way.
I think it's better because it's for a reason.
It also
Yeah,
doesn't
there are
have
a lot of, I don't
have
think
that
it's like
scene.
necessarily like a problem that there's all these like subservient women in the film, because like it's like making a comment on it, and
But it's worth acknowledging that it exists.
Yeah.
And then that it was
Yeah.
for, it's like
but
representation.
I think the filmmakers knew what they were doing when they did it.
Correct. It's representation's important. And the problem is when you make a film where women are represented as subservient to men, that can be problematic. But I think this
Yeah.
does a very smart job of being like, we're doing it for a reason to let you know this be a bad one.
Yeah.
This is a mirror of the larger struggle. If you feel bad for replicants at all, you should feel bad for women in real life.
Yeah.
Is what or any minority
Yeah,
is
the
what
thing
we're
is, like,
saying.
they weren't showing it in a positive light, and that's where it
Yes.
would be problematic.
And we've done the thing that people get pissed off when that happens. It's a podcast. And I see you typing your email, writing your YouTube comment saying, politics isn't everything now. I went to podcasts to get away from politics. Now it's in sport and music and
Welcome to the real
now in
world.
podcasts. Fuck you. Fuck you. Is what
I
I'm
happen
saying.
to care about female representation in film. Thank
Yeah, I think
it's yeah.
because they definitely wanted to sort of present this idea of the future being like hypersexualized.
Yes.
Right.
It's just they kind of they were like, hypersexuality. How do we do that? Boobs.
But what I
That's it.
well,
Nothing else.
Well, that's what I thought was different.
Give us some boy butts. Like, what's wrong with
Yeah,
a
there
couple
was
of
no
what's
representation
wrong
of,
with a
like,
couple
male-
You're right,
of
we didn't see any-
man
we
buns?
Male anatomy.
Didn't even see a one dick.
Didn't even see a single peen.
What I was going to say though,
0 out of 10.
this speaks to the used future style that they had in the first one. They kind of brought more into this one versus like the near futurism thing. Is that what you get is a world that's been hypersexualized for a long time. So instead of like what you do now to sexualize something, which is like suggestive hypersexualization. So it's like you don't see the nudity; it's like heavily implied. Right,
the,
sexuality is applied. This is a world that's been so far through that there's like a 40-foot giant naked woman, and
Yeah.
no one bats an eyelid.
Everyone's
right?
fine.
So
Yeah.
the hypersexualization has gone so far that it no longer is sexual, and in doing so,
Like, where
you
are
know?
the male like Calvin Klein?
where's
models?
my 20-foot dick?
Yeah,
you
like
know?
wait, if
Where's Justin Bieber hologram with his peen out from that Calvin Klein photo shoot, covered in tattoos with his abs?
I keep wanting to reference stuff that happens in the Interface series, but we haven't finished it.
You'll spoil it. Be it Patreon only.
But
Um,
it's it's the kind of thing where if they had taken like sort of what people I don't know, there needed to be more naked boys in
No,
this
good
film.
thought. You nailed it.
Yeah.
We didn't
That's
see
my opinion.
Gozzo with his shirt off, which.
We saw like 3 frames of like Gozzo's side butt. I was
I've-
like, yes,
But I just
my
wanted.
God. And then it was gone.
I wanted full back Gozzo.
full
nude.
full
Oh my
back.
God.
Because like, can you
I
imagine
mean,
his shoulder muscles?
I
in that
could
guy?
have.
Oh.
Yeah,
And,
that
like,
would have
the-
been nice.
The frame. He's a handsome boy.
Can we just talk about how you guys seem more excited about this than I do?
I
About
really
what, Ryan
like Ryan Gosling.
I would if listen.
I
Listen.
really like Ryan Gosling.
He's amazing.
He is fantastic.
Crazy Stupid Love is one of the best films ever made.
La La Land.
Fucking La La
Fucking
Land.
fantastic.
Fucking everything he's in is great.
He goes a bit drive in this film. So
Oh, do you want to touch on that?
for my it's really bad, but like my sort of I have this level because Ryan Gosling can play sort of fairly normal characters,
Yep.
and then like you sort of step down to line into the more sort of like very antisocial / autistic sections. So okay, in Drive he is autistic. Like he's straight up.
Yeah.
He is autistic.
Yeah. Watch the film.
He
It's really good.
he is. And this film was like it got close. there were points where I was just like, we're getting a bit of autistic.
Well, can we talk about
Ryan Gosling
Can
here?
we talk? I want to pivot and
Which I actually like, because I think he plays that role really well.
Well, in the same
an
way that
interesting
Harrison
way.
Ford plays like the uncaring
rogue.
masculine rogue
Yeah.
guy,
Really well.
Ryan Gosling's version of that is like the ambivalent, nihilistic kind of guy that maybe doesn't care or understand about
Yeah,
you
and
at
it's
all.
either a sociopath or doesn't know how to
Yeah,
talk to people.
and it's like not that
Or
I can relate
both.
to that in any way,
Yeah.
but the
David's a well-adjusted, normal, regular guy.
things are good. This is what I do with my Thursday nights. No, I guess the point that I kind of want to end on to try and wrap this all up in a nice little package, which is going to take considerable brain strength at
All right,
11:35 at night.
give it a shot.
I'm not vamping because I'm out of ideas. I'm just
Right.
kind of getting us to that point.
Okay.
So I guess the point I wanted to end on then is that when you look at this whole package as a whole, like the film as a concept, one of the main through lines is that whether it's like the soundtrack or it's the way the sound effects integrate with it, or it's the mirroring of the characters with each other, or it's the foiling of different characters with each other, or whether it's the the weather patterns representing different kinds of purification or noise. I think the underlying theme is that things that don't matter are noisy, but things that matter are loud. So you're in the city, it's like there's noise everywhere and you can't hear anything, but things that matter are loud. Ryan Gosling pulling out the horse from the furnace. Harrison Ford, dragging him from the ocean. Things that matter are loud, and things that don't are noisy. And I think the underlying theme that we get from this used future, neo-futurism, replicants, humans, philosophy thing is that whether or not you are a person, or you're a replicant, or you're somewhere in between, as long as you can differentiate between the two and you understand the difference between, okay, well, this is something that is just noise and it's valueless versus this is a real connection with, this hologram lady, or it's a real connection with this guy who I've met who, had this kid and was in love. That stuff is loud, whereas the stuff that's noisy, you have to learn to discard. And I think that's a message that now more than ever, as far as like futurist films are concerned, I think that's even more valuable than your kind of Hunger Games future dystopia thing where it's like fascism's bad. It's like, yeah, obviously.
Cool, thanks
we
for
we
that.
know that.
But we know that, and we've done nothing about it, and we're letting it infect, the world. But the truth is that the only way you address that is by helping people recognize, okay, well, there's noise, and then there's stuff that should be loud.
Yeah.
And I think this film does a good job of bringing your attention to the things that are loud, are like, Kay, he's lying on the steps and he's dying slowly, and he's looking up at the falling snow, and it's Harrison Ford meeting his daughter for the first time. Those are the things that matter, not the big battle sequences.
Yeah,
or-
and like the gunslinging. The gunslinging is the gunslinging is noisy.
It's
like
noise.
the missiles dropping down is noisy.
Yeah.
It's not loud because it doesn't actually matter.
Jared Leto's seeing
Yeah,
is
the,
noisy.
The papers being ripped out of the book is loud.
And I think that
The horse scene is loud.
the whole scene is, well, yeah, but that
Very loud.
That to me speaks to, you can still make a blockbuster film that is action, sci-fi, amazing graphics, beautiful,
fantastic.
fantastically directed,
Like,
shot, beautiful
yeah.
transition, beautiful scenes, amazing acting. You can do that and have it fucking mean something. And that's what it's all about. And I don't have a more fucking, like, I just, this is like, I'm having a
such a
genuine
really
David
good
moment right
film.
now, but like, yeah, I fucking love this film.
This film's really good.
I had a really good time. And that to me, that's what it's, it's 11, we gotta go. Ben, any recommendations for this
Facebook.
week? No recommendations.
No recommendations.
Uh,
See this film. That's it.
Go watch this film. I had one that I had before. but it's,
Facebook,
DCMworks Social.
YouTube,
YouTube.com/DCMworks.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. We've got some stuff going up there pretty soon. Some behind the scenes stuff.
Twitter. did that
No,
on
I'm
the
still
wrong
going.
order.
I'm still going. I was mid sentence. The new episode of Interface is going up in the next 2 weeks. I'm just finishing up the editing on that, going through my second pass. It gets weirder, so look forward to that.
There only gets weird.
It only gets weirder from here. If you want to get any merchandise like this pillow, go to redbubble.com/people/DCMworks. And if you are a Patreon with over a $5 a month, I think it's, $5 a month subscription, every 2 months we do a mail out of free merchandise. You get one shirt or one pillow. So if you do want to get that, it's like I think you save like $5 or $6 by doing that. So you can go there, you can do that. It's a great way to help support us. It puts money into the show to help us pay for lights and cameras.
It puts a pillow on your couch.
Gets a pillow on your couch, mate, or your bed, or in your car, wherever you want to put it.
Who puts a pillow in their car?
Listen, sometimes cars are hard. But as always, it's been a pleasure. I'm at DC on my Hate Pie.
I'm at Literal Citrus.
I'm at Laura Ducky B.
And we'll see you guys next time. It was probably a song that reminded me of it, or I'd done an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Writing is definitely an isolating thing.
From an outside perspective, that's weird as
It makes
fuck.
us look really mental.
But that is
Because of what it kind of said about art.
I had fun in bits. There were fun bits.
we went and bought a value pack of straps.
Oh my god, we did. There is a big lesson here to learn about storytelling.